You were caught up in the flight cancellations, or you were trying to get into or get out of Germany over the last couple of days. I've never seen snow like this in Germany in my life. A load of flights were cancelled over the weekend because of the snow in Germany, and this has had a huge knock-on effect impacting airlines and flights all over Europe. 10 Irish flight cancellations, as far as I know. Also in travel news, the hassle of trying to get a refund for a cancelled flight might be a thing of the past now, so this is all good news, as there's good news coming to us from the EU. Eoghan Corry is editor of Air and Travel magazine. Good morning to you, Eoghan.
Oh, good morning, Gareth.
I've never seen anything like the snow in Germany. This is like something you'd expect in, say, March in New York or in Boston, but it was extraordinary.
Yeah, it grounded Munich. It got a particular dump in Munich. Frankfurt wasn't as badly affected. As you say, the knock-ons are still going on. We've lost a Munich flight and a Frankfurt flight today from Dublin. But what happens is aircraft get stranded. There was some suggestion we get it open by midday on Saturday, but the snow kept coming. The upside of that, Gareth, is the ski resorts of Dublin of the Alps are heaving with snow. In fact, some of them were closed because there was too much snow, and it's sort of a big opening week, and next week's a big opening week. So we're going to have the best pre-Christmas skiing we've seen in about 8 years. So it's a pretty good time to head for the slopes for anyone thinking of doing it.
Absolutely. We'll go back to that in a moment, but one of the things, whenever I've sort of flown into Germany, it's usually to connect with one of the long-distance trains to get elsewhere. They've all been hugely impacted, haven't they, coming out of Munich?
Absolutely, and you're right, Gareth, to say this thing. People talk about internal flights, but if you have a train system, that's something that we in Ireland never got our heads around. You can actually get off a flight in Frankfurt and Munich. There are two main access points, mainly Frankfurt, and get the train to Berlin or somewhere as quick as you would taking a connecting flight. It's a terrific service. The trains all run to the minute, and they are all interconnected. And to the extent that you can, with Lufthansa, and it's the same in France, your airline ticket works on the train as well. So in some cases, as I have done, you go into a train station, buy an air ticket, produce your boarding pass on your phone with your air ticket, get on your train, and then get off the train and onto the flight. It's a magnificent system. It works really, really well in countries that have train systems. And the three outstanding examples of that are not just France and Germany, but Spain, which has put a hugely comprehensive high-speed train network into place in the last few years. Really, really works. And of course, it's very good for the environment. It might mean that you get back on Greta Thunberg's Christmas card list.
Okay. Yeah. And the thing,
which I'm not on at the moment, Gareth, I can assure you.
No, I'm definitely not on it either. In fact, I don't think she's aware of my of who I am.
Oh, she is. I'm sure she is. I'm sure she has all your books on a shelf somewhere.
Just talking about Munich and Deutsche Bahn and the railway stations, we'll come back to the refunds in a moment. For anyone who hasn't been to a German railway station, particularly I know the main one in Munich, it's almost like walking into an international airport, isn't it?
It's an emporium, and it's got everything. I think they even have a Christmas market at this time of the year. It's fabulous, well organised. The directions, getting to platforms, getting to exactly where you are is pretty. It's very well organised. The apps that you have from Deutsche Bahn and the apps from the airlines and from your ordinary Google Maps will actually direct you to platforms. Your train is going to be in 8 minutes' time. You can then calculate how fast you have to run with 2 children under one arm and 2 bags under the other, and it's all fantastic. There is a cautionary tale. This is a bit of a diversion, but I did a wonderful overnight. I was coming from one side of the Alps to the other, which is quite complicated. I was in, I think, Val Waldesser, and I was going to one of those Bad Gastein in Austria. So I came by train through Geneva, Zurich, and I got on this overnight wonderful sleeper. It was going on to Sarajevo, and I had my little cabin, and I put my pajamas on, and I set my phone off so to know how far I would be from the station I was supposed to be getting off. And of course, at some stage when I was checking, I pressed the wrong place, so I thought I was 100 kilometres away, only to look out the window of the snow and see that this was the station I was supposed to be getting off. So it was one of the most quickest exits off a sleeper train you ever saw in your life, but I did make it off before I ended up in Sarajevo. The train system in Europe is absolutely fab. Can you imagine, Gareth, if somebody in Ireland at some stage had said, let's put a high-speed train network in, let's make it 45 or 50 minutes from Cork to Dublin, another 45 minutes to Belfast. What that would do for going to matches, for going to up for the weekend, even, commuting. It would take the housing pressures off if we had a train system in Ireland that worked. But unfortunately, they weren't in school, that they were teaching that for the rest of the European countries.
I know. I'm a regular commuter on the Cork to Dublin route, and they're improving it all the time. But having got to know so many people working for Irish Rail, that's one of their big grievances, that unfortunately the system was torn apart when railway tracks were removed and the land was sold back in the 1950s. And if that had been left in place, I suppose the infrastructure would have been there to improve, but I don't think we'll ever get that back again.
If you look at a map of the railway network in the 1880s, it's magnificent. And if somebody got rides from Germany, they expect us to have a train service. They want to go from Dublin to Cork. First of all, it costs more than the flight from Berlin to Dublin. And then the service, while it has improved, I do remember Friday evening trains where people were just standing, crammed, as if it was cattle trucks, and that's only about 10 or 15 years ago. But things have improved, but it's nowhere near where it should be for us to be a modern train-using country. And this is the week of COP28 in Dubai. It's something that the Irish ministers who were out there should be scratching their heads about when they come home. I know Eoghan Corry has said, in terms of investment, heavy rail is the most expensive thing you can invest in. But when you start taking long-term considerations into it, something that maybe they should be factoring more or spending a little bit more time thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk about the hassle of trying to get a refund for a cancelled flight. That might be a thing of the past now. Is that the case?
It's not really that it's going to be a thing of the past, but what we have from the European Union is a little bit of a better consideration of how the system works. And the airline ticket is a very complicated thing. I know that some of your listeners will be quite surprised at that, because it's become almost like getting a bus ticket from Cork to Dublin. The real complicated stuff happens when there's more than one destination involved, where you've got a connecting flights, things like that. That's where the European Union has started to put legislation in place. And the reason that they got so animated about this was the system, when it broke down during the pandemic, it broke down quite spectacularly. Oddly enough, the travel agents of Ireland, who are a noble group of people who, the people have been predicting their extinction for many years, but they do a tremendous service because they take the complicated bits of travel. Everybody just does the easy bit themselves, where they go to book a flight to Malaga or whatever, but the complicated bits are left, and they do that, and they do things like the honeymoons and the five-leg flights that people have to take. And they got caught very badly because they've taken money off their customers, passed it on to the suppliers, airlines, not just airlines, but cruise companies as well. When the crunch came, the customers rightly wanted their money back, and the suppliers refused to give it back to the travel agents. I know one travel agent in Tralee who paid out nearly $200,000 out of his own money refunding customers, and waited nearly a year and a half to get it back from suppliers, in some cases never got it back. So all of those things happened, and the European Union now has a system, it has a proposed law. It has to wing its way through Parliament and through all of the governments, the states, the different governments also have to discuss this, but it's basically giving very strict time limit. The supplier pays the travel travel agent back in 7 days. The travel agent pays the customer back in 14. There's a whole load of other bits and pieces. But the real breakthrough here is that it's the first legal recognition I've seen that there usually is a middleman in a complicated travel transaction. The likes of Ryanair, they say don't use a middleman, just book our flight. But that's great if you're flying from A to B. A lot of people would like to fly to an airport that doesn't have a direct connection from Dublin, and as you know, there's only about 55 direct connections from Cork, so very often there'll be a second connection. Cork is a big user of transfers through Amsterdam, for instance. So a lot of flights are not just point to point, they involve two legs. And those complicated bits are what the EU is looking at in terms of legislation. They're looking at minimum transfer times, more information for passengers. They're really the EU has been the one that's been standing up for the consumer down the years. In Irish history, we have loads of people standing up for business, and the trade unions have been very strong for standing up for employees. The consumer was sometimes left out. This is an intervention on behalf of the consumer, and it's really it's probably based somewhat on what happened during the pandemic, but it's also based on what happened when we had a few major airline failures. The most recent that affected Irish customers was more in Belfast than anywhere else was Flybe. But the airlines fail, and while we never might see a pandemic again, it's quite likely that other little complicated things will come along, and the European Union legislation is designed to make sure that the consumer is not out of pocket and gets his money back.
Yeah. I take it this is going to be one of the busiest Christmases for people getting away for the couple of weeks, both sort of late December and January and February, particularly the ski slopes.
Ski slopes good. Actually, the quietest time of the year, the best time for prices to travel is the run up to Christmas. People are thinking of turkeys and wrapping paper and tinsel. They don't tend to think of travelling at this time of the year. That all changes in the week of Christmas. We will have a very busy Christmas in Cork Airport, back to ahead of pre-pandemic levels. Not every airport in Europe is at that level. Some of them are still a little bit behind. And but if you're looking for a bargain, the first 2 weeks in December are a great time to go, not just for the ski slopes, but also for the Canary Islands. That's really our sun location. You don't have that many choices because it's an 8-hour flight really to get to sun unless you go to Canaries off Ireland, and that really is our place of choice. But if you look at the way prices work on the websites, everybody plays this little game with the airlines. When it's a good time to book, when it's a good time to get the best price. First 2 weeks in December, you can count on it every year as offering you the very, very best value for money you'll see through the 12 months.
That's great news. Okay. Eoghan, as always, a great pleasure to talk to you. Happy Christmas to you.
Tremendous pleasure, Gareth. Thank you.
Talk to you very soon. Take care. Thank you. That's Eoghan Corry, there, editor of Air and Travel magazine.